By the way, I am really liking this session that we have afterwards where we go on silent and work on our books because for the first time in a year and a half, I've actually been working on the Published Author Workbook because of that. And I've gotten a ton of stuff done and I can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel now. And I'm like, this wouldn't be happening except that we have this working session after these calls. So it's been great for me.
Well, no, it's been wonderful for me too, because you can't go off on those little things that you do in your own time. Well, I'll just run out here and do this, or I'll just do this too. And next thing you know, you're gone for 2 hours and the thing doesn't get done.
Yep. Yep. No, it's just too easy to get distracted, but I'm always on the edge. I just need that little bit of help to stay on task. And having this call, I mean, because I could do whatever I want, right? Nobody is actually seeing what I'm working on. But
I know.
I just figure, well, I'm here. I'll work on the book stuff. And when I
Josh, do you
do,
mean
I
to
get
tell me
stuff done.
that as far as writing goes, you don't have an accountability partner?
No, not at the moment. That's why I've made this group my accountability partner.
Okay.
It's funny. I go through stages. I mean, everybody struggles to write at some point, even if they love writing. Stephen King wrote 30 or 40 books when he started writing, and then he went for a period of 15 years when he did not write a single book. He couldn't do it. He just said, I can't do it. And he didn't know why. He wasn't depressed. He just couldn't write for 15 years. He had no ideas. And then he said, all of a sudden, one day he got an idea and he started writing and it just started flowing out of him all over again. And for me, it's not so much that. It's not that I don't know what to write about. It's just, I'll go through stages where it just becomes part of my daily habit and I get it done. And then I'll go through stages where it just seems like I'm too busy and I just can't fit it in. So, I mean, the Published Author Workbook is like, even if you take out all the parts where you fill in the blanks, it's still like 250, 300 pages of actual text. I got that all done in a couple of months, like 2 or 3 months. And then it just sat there. And I haven't finished up the last 10% until now. I'm getting back into it. And I wrote my memoir of adopting my daughter from China. And that thing's 400 pages of solid text.
Wow.
And I think I wrote all of that in maybe 9 months. But I had a system for that where I made it part of my morning routine. And every morning I would go in, I would spend at least an hour working on it. And if I really felt like I was in a groove, then I'd write for 4 hours or something. And so, but I haven't touched it since I did my vomit draft. I need to go back and edit it. And it's been a slog for me to go back and actually edit it. So it's just interesting how we all go through these stages of wild productivity and then we can't touch it. And it's interesting. It happens to all of us.
What, if you had to, what percentage of writing new content, whether it's books, articles, or publications, what percentage of that is the priority for your business? Like, can you run your business and never write another new book or article? Or is your business contingent upon you continuing to write and publish new content?
0% of my businesses are dependent on me writing, or at least I think so. Maybe they're more dependent than I think they are, or maybe they're more dependent for real growth than I think they are. But they're all running and growing at least somewhat without me doing necessarily any writing. If I knew that I could write something and I would see a certain result in my business, that would definitely help me to write more. But I do tend to get bogged down with a lot of minutia in the businesses. And so months go by and I think, gee, I'm not really doing any writing. Why am I not writing? And it's like, I'm just busy with all this miscellaneous stuff all day. And if I could push that to the side, then I would write more. But then I do get into a doubt. I get stuck in doubt where I say, well, what good is it going to do if I write this? Is it really going to do anything for my business? Is this really the right thing to write, or what should I be writing? And it's easy for me to just kind of feel like I don't know exactly what to write. And then I go back to doing the minutia of the business.
Right.
It's
Okay.
easy when you know, if I write this, or at least if you believe that if I write this specific thing, it's going to have a big impact on my business, that makes it easy for me to write. But it's when there's that doubt of, gee, I could write 10 different books right now, but which one should I write? Which one will have the biggest impact? Or I could write 50 different articles, but which article should I write? And really, are any of them going to have that big of an impact? And where should I publish it? And how much work is it going to take? And when I start asking myself all those questions, it's really easy for me to lose motivation.
Yeah. Well, I want to, Virginia, if you don't mind me going first, I'm going
Not
to,
at all, not at all.
so, my question today is, you remember Michael Toothman?
Yep.
He was, he eventually ran one of your Facebook groups, and we were in the original class that you started about getting published in Forbes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how well you know Michael, but Michael has taken a very strong interest in my content, which means he's
Well, yeah, he's
attending,
got the China connection too.
he's
So
got the China connection, and he's apparently single, so he dates Chinese women too. But whatever. But he's been taking a lot of interest in my content, and he's been attending my classes, and for make a long story short, he drove to Irvine to meet me face to face. And he basically started with the question, what can I do to help you? That's
mhm.
how he started the conversation. And I said, well, you've been helping a lot just by attending the events, giving me feedback and stuff like that. And the conversation went that he suggested that in order for me to have greater influence or to sell more books or whatever my goals are business-wise, I should publish articles as a contributor to like Forbes, exactly what you were selling before. And he says he has some connections with either contributors or writers and stuff like that. And if I can give him an article, he's going to help me get published in some magazine. It may not be Forbes, but just somewhere. For whatever reason, he's taken an interest in helping me.
Mhm.
So that was the impetus for me to write that article. I was actually on a cruise with my parents and my son, and I managed to, in the 1 or 2 hours of break I got, I managed to actually write an article, which is what I posted in the group. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts about, the thing that I struggle with is marketing. And I
Mhm.
struggle with marketing in terms of I don't have enough time to do marketing. But marketing is something that you should like, when's the best time to market a book, before you write it, right?
Mhm.
So I struggle with marketing just because of bandwidth and resources and all of that stuff. So I thought that the ROI of actually working on trying to get an article published in Forbes or becoming one of their contributors that contributes 5 articles a year or whatever it is, that might be a better ROI of my time to do marketing instead of trying to do TikTok videos and Instagram videos and stuff like that. So just wanted to see what your thoughts about making my next quote unquote marketing objective to get published in a magazine like Forbes.
Yeah. Curiously, just an hour ago, I was talking with a PR expert about this question of whether Forbes and these publications carry the same weight that they carried back when I was writing for them, or if the content landscape has changed. And her opinion was that still a lot of people are reading these articles, but they might be finding the articles in different ways. You see suggested articles come up in your feed on your phone all the time now. And so it might not be that people are going to the Forbes website and then finding articles. They're just seeing what pops up in their feed or on Twitter or linked somewhere else from another source. But she says it still seems like everybody's reading this stuff. And she said whenever she's writing an article for somebody that's going in Forbes, she said, it's still very easy for me to get in touch with people by saying, hey, I write for Forbes, and it opens the doors. So she said, it doesn't seem like there's any less cachet with the Forbes brand than there was. Because when I started writing in 2013, that was one of the biggest benefits was I could talk to anybody I wanted to talk to just because I could email them and say, hey, I want to interview you for a Forbes article I'm working on. That opened any door. And so I think there's still a lot of value to be had in writing for these publications, some more than others. And some of the publications are more friendly to write for. Some of them are kind of a pain a bit. Some of them you have to pay for, like Entrepreneur. There's only one way to get into Entrepreneur now, and you have to pay $3,000 a year to be a contributor for Entrepreneur. And they're kind of a pain to work with. So Entrepreneur is not one that I highly recommend. Plus, I've never really seen a huge return on my writing for Entrepreneur. Whereas for Forbes, Forbes pays you not much, but they'll pay you a little bit. It's based on how many people see your articles. And you don't have to pay them anything. And they give you a little bit more leeway to write what you want to write, although you're supposed to stay in your swim lane that you cover. So like if you get in there and you say, I write about China and communication between China and the West, you would have to stick to that forever. But Forbes could be a good one. Business Insider is another good one to write for. But there are a lot of these publications that will pay you, not a lot, but for example, Business Insider will pay you a minimum of $300 for an article, up to, depending on how much research and time you put into an article, you can get paid $1,000, $2,000 for an article. And so my friend Kamanzi, who runs that group that I linked to, he teaches people how to get into these publications. He knows who all the editors are. He knows the pitch process. He's up to date on everything. He's why I gave up doing my own course, because the longer we were competing against each other, the more I realized he is so focused on this and he does nothing else that there's no way I can compete long-term with what he's doing. And that's why I gave up on my course to teach people how to get into publications. So his community that he has for teaching people how to do it, it's great. It's $900 a month to join, but you can join anytime, you can quit anytime. I'm in it, and it's definitely been helpful for me. I'm not even using it for myself. I'm using it to get other people into publications, my PR clients, but it's been really helpful to help me to get these people into the publications.
What is the rest of that information of who he is? I don't know.
Yeah, let me put the link in the chat here real quick.
What about, so my real question is, from a marketing point of view, would that, let's just say I have 15 hours a week that I can dedicate to marketing. Should I be writing articles and trying to get published in Forbes or Business Insider, or should I create more TikTok videos and Instagram Reels and try to reach people that way? Or should I, sign up for LinkedIn Navigator and just try to make personal connections with everybody I can on LinkedIn? I'm just trying to look for what is the best ROI of my time, given I'm a kind of a solopreneur, stay-at-home dad.
Well, if I didn't know you, I would say, well, who's your audience and where do they hang out? Is your audience on TikTok? Is that where they hang out? Or are they hanging out on Forbes? Where can you most easily connect with your audience? And if they're on Forbes, how valuable is that on Forbes to be associated with the Forbes brand? Or even if they're not finding your content on Forbes, how valuable is it for you to be associated with Forbes as you reach out to your audience in other places? So that's where I would start. Knowing a little bit about you and your audience, I would think Forbes would probably be a better audience than TikTok, but you can tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, since we do know each other a bit, the difficulty that I'm having is reaching enough people to be able to scrape the ones that actually really would benefit from what I have to offer.
And who are the ones who really would benefit from what you have to offer? I mean,
Well,
who's your ideal audience?
So for example, Michael Toothman, he started going to, he just happened to sign up for one of my recent online events, and he's the one who actually left the testimonial afterwards, spontaneously, because after the event, I just said, hey, Michael, why don't you tell me a little bit of what you thought about this event? And he was just, he basically was pleasantly surprised on how much value he was able to get. And he's been doing this for so long, which is working with China businesses and working with Chinese people. he probably didn't realize that someone could so succinctly point out exactly why he's encountering the challenges that he's encountered. So I need to, and there's also been other people at these events. So if you want to do the 1,000 true fans kind of analogy, I probably have about 5 true fans, which is not enough to make a business. My question is, not everybody I encounter is going to be a true fan. I want to try to maximize the ROI of reaching more potential prospects that can actually come into my ecosystem, start to join these events, and start to be interested in everything I write and everything I sell, which again, Michael Toothman is an example of somebody who's become that after just attending one event.
So how would you state Michael's main problem in one sentence? The main problem that makes him so interested in your content.
He has never been able to achieve the expected outcomes that he wanted in any of his business and personal relationships with Chinese people.
Okay.
And he doesn't understand why.
Okay, that's pretty good. So your ideal audience is, would you say your ideal audience is, well,
my ideal audience is an American who has some kind of relationship with Chinese businesses, Chinese people, or Chinese entities, and struggles to have a more productive or constructive relationship.
cool, perfect. So it's a niche audience, right? I mean, there's a lot of those people, but it's
one of
still a
those
niche.
it's one of those things that there's a lot of those people, because there's almost every white collar American business person that isn't running their own mom and pop shop will have some constituent in China that they have to deal with, either from the supply side or the demand side or the competitor side. And most of them would like a better outcome in how they deal with that situation in China. And this extends to cross-cultural relationships, as in marriage, and situations as in politics. You know, how do our respective chambers of commerce deal with the visiting Chinese delegation who's trying to set up a business here? How does the business person who's in a legal lawsuit with a Chinese business entity, how do they mediate that dispute without having to go to court? How does any American business who's doing business with China and all the geopolitical tensions that's changing the business landscape, how do they readjust their strategy in order to be successful? How do they deal with Chinese employees who now, over the last 5 years, have become dramatically more nationalistic and more patriotic and more anti-American and anti-West? How do I address the changing mentality and mindset and worldviews of my local Chinese employees? Anybody in any one of those situations is someone that I can help directly. And I can't reach enough of them working from home, creating TikTok videos. So when Michael, he reached out to me, he attended my event without me reaching out to him. He contacted me after the event and says, "Hey, I know you're writing this book." He says, "I'm a wonderful writer. I would love to, maybe become a co-author in your book." Then he attended the next event. And then the next thing you know, he's saying, "Gene, if you have a chance, let's meet up and chat." I said, "Sure. But it's not convenient for me to drive out to Riverside. If you happen to be in Irvine, on Monday, I went on a family cruise on Tuesday. Then we can do that, or we can just wait till I come back." He says, "I happen to be in Irvine on Monday," which means he's went out of his way to come meet me to talk about how he can help me, because he found so much value in my content.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Michael's always been a great supporter, and I need to touch base with him because it's been too long, but he's like you. He's just been a fantastic supporter over the long term.
Yeah, but he would be an avatar. He's a
Yeah.
American. He doesn't speak much Chinese, but he wants to. He has a lot of relationships with both China businesses and Chinese people, and he struggles.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, as I listen to you, I keep thinking, if you had a community of 1,000 people who really followed you, like 1,000 Michaels, that would
Yeah.
be amazing, right?
Well, that would be a six-figure business.
Right. Any business you came out with, you would know 1,000 people are going to buy my book. Anything I come out with, 1,000 people will buy it. They're going to
Yeah.
listen. They're going to
Yeah.
tell other people about it.
Yep.
And I think if you just start with Michael, well, I mean, you've got other people, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying you could start with Michael and just say, how do I find the next Michael? How do I make Michael so happy that he tells everybody he knows about me? And he obviously knows other people who are dealing with China too. So how is it that you get Michael to word of mouth, spread the news about you to other people who are like him? Because if you
Yeah.
can do that for one person and you can get Michael to invite 5 people, well, then you can get those 5 people to invite 5 people and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I
I
think
feel like I
Michael's
spend
almost,
way too little time trying to figure this out myself. And I keep trying to go for the big media blast stuff when sometimes I feel like maybe I need to just focus on 2 or 3 people and really help them and then start it from there.
yeah, I think Michael almost volunteered to do what you just said.
Yeah.
So, I have, yeah, so there's Michael Toothman, the person who's a adjunct professor at Riverside University. Then there's a couple other people who have regularly attended my events. There's like 3 regulars that always attend my events. They want to be co-authors. They want to take my course, all of that stuff. And then I have my professor from when I got my MBA degree in 20 years ago. He still regularly invites me to be a keynote speaker for his global executive MBAs. In fact, I did one last year and the year before. After COVID and everything went online, I no longer had to go back to Atlanta to do that. He's always asking me about, how he can help in publications and stuff like that. I'm just one of those guys who doesn't really like to ask other people kind of like for favors and help like that. So if I feel I can benefit them, I'm just happy to almost do it pro bono.
Mm-hmm.
I've always, maybe it's the way that I was raised, but I've always put trying to sell something secondary.
Yeah.
And just trying to, be a good friend, be a good partner, try to serve other people is really what I've been trying to do. And I've been trying to hope, I guess hope is not a strategy, but I could build more of a following organically.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the central basis of my question. Should I go in the Forbes route? That will generate a lot of organic traffic to whatever landing page and whatever content I have, right?
Well, the great thing about Forbes is it makes you an authority figure in a way that writing books won't necessarily do on its own. I mean, can do, but won't necessarily. But the second you post your first Forbes article, then you're a Forbes writer for life. And you can always say that. And there's a lot of great credibility that comes along with that. And so I think even if you don't get a lot of traffic from Forbes itself, the value of just having the Forbes brand is something to take into consideration, because you can put it in your books, you can put it whenever you host an event, you can always mention that you're a contributor at Forbes. And I think there's a lot of clout that will help you to attract the people you're trying to attract just by being associated with the Forbes brand.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I just want to bounce it off of you and see what you thought. I also, I just, how long should Forbes articles be? What should they be focused? So I attached, it's just 700 words. If you have a chance to glance through it, it would be kind of like one of the first articles that I was thinking of pitching Forbes through Michael. Actually, I wasn't going to do it myself. Michael says he has connections, so I'm just going to see what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, I would see what Michael has, but I would I would check out this group that Kamanzi has, and you can reach out to Kamanzi, talk with him. You can get on a phone call with him. He'll walk you through the whole group. He'll show you his stuff. Even if you don't sign up for Kamanzi's group, sign up for his email newsletter, because he shares so many gems just in his free newsletter about how to contact editors and which editors to contact and when and how to pitch. And he's just got so much good stuff.
Okay. Well, he put you out of business, so obviously it's good.
Yeah. Well, he not only put me out of business, but now I'm paying him for the
Yeah.
stuff that I already know how to do.
Right.
That's how good he is.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, he's good, and he's a good guy. I met him in Hong Kong, was the first time I met him, and then we've stayed in touch ever since. It's kind of funny. I started following him, and then I heard he was coming to Hong Kong. And I was like, hey, I'm in Hong Kong. Let's have lunch. So I took him to lunch. And then the next time we met was randomly in Israel. I had never been to Israel before. I was there for a business trip, and he was on a business trip in Israel, and we connected and had lunch together there too. And it's like, we're both from the US, and yet somehow we're meeting in Hong Kong and Israel and in these random exotic places.
That's not an accident. That's not an accident. I don't believe that they are. One thing I wanted to add about TikTok, there's an awful lot of news now that they're trying to banish it.
Yeah, which way do you think this is going, Gene? I mean, you're the China expert.
Well, I'm the China expert, but I'm not the geopolitical expert.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, I cut you off, Virginia. What were you going to say about it?
That's kind of what and I also wanted to add to that. I also wondered if that affects people's thinking, that people are getting nervous about using, adults, kids don't care, but about using TikTok and having their information go someplace. So I would think that would be a factor in your decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. And it's not the fact that TikTok may get banned. When I say TikTok, I use that term generically because TikTok is #1 in the short form videos. If I just wanted to reach a US audience, Instagram Reels is actually starting to really, really take off. So the same video that I make for TikTok, I don't even need to repurpose it for Instagram Reels. In fact, if TikTok disappeared, I could still make the same videos and use them in Instagram.
Yeah.
So I just use TikTok because everybody knows what a TikTok video is.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, Josh, that's not my area of expertise. What business decisions US leaders would make. However, I could potentially advise one of our lawmakers what decision they should make, depending on what their short and long-term goals are.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I don't actually make a recommendation on whether they should or should not ban TikTok is actually I don't know what their actual objectives are.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting stuff.
What about the control of the government? That's the big factor that for those of us that really don't know a lot worry about.
Control.
You mean China having access to everything on TikTok and controlling it?
The Chinese government's control of the data.
Yeah, it's almost like buyer beware. If Facebook has access to a lot of data too, and they've inappropriately sold data to Cambridge Analytics. So a lot of big tech companies, whether they're foreign or domestic, have access to a lot of data that potentially could be harmful. So the question isn't which foreign entities should we block from our data. The question is what kind of regulations should we have in place for the data? And I think it's even more importantly, how do we educate our public about the risks of putting data out there, right? All of the Facebook users who lost their data through Cambridge Analytica, that was a US entity, US company, and all that was affected majority was probably US users. So.
Yeah, Tim Berners-Lee, who is credited with inventing the internet, has some really interesting ideas around privacy and giving users control over their data through a fundamental restructuring of the internet. And I hope we see that in the future. I hope we see it where you have your data and you 100% control that data, and only people you give access to that data can really see it. Because right now, I'm sure I've got data all over the place, and I'm sure there's a bunch of it on Chinese government servers and US government servers.
And
I
Russian
used to live
government
in,
servers and
yeah,
Canadian
Russia.
government servers.
I used to
I,
live in Utah, and Utah has a huge data center for the NSA there that supposedly is recording the entire internet, and all our data is on those servers in Utah. So everybody's got our data,
yeah.
and
So
I think it is a concern, but
yeah. So
it's
my response for Virginia is, you should be concerned about the Chinese government having access to your data only to the extent that you are concerned with any country having access to your data. It's not the Chinese government by itself. I don't think would do anything malice to any ordinary US citizen. They would do the same thing with the data as all of the people who are advertising on Facebook. They're trying to achieve a political objective, right? So people who use Facebook to advertise to blue states or white or blue or red, conservative or liberal, they're just using that data to try to achieve some political agenda. The Chinese government, if they had access to that data, would be doing the exact same thing. So we just have to make sure we have a similar set of standards that we apply to foreigners having access to our data and Americans having access to data. People can do what they want to with data, and it's really, really apolitical.
now, if you're going to run for president someday, maybe you want to be really careful about what you put on TikTok.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it also depends. Like for me personally, I know that I have distant relatives who are still in mainland China. My wife's family is in mainland China. So I'm very, very conscious of what I post everywhere, even on LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn, if all I do is criticize the US government on LinkedIn, then I may get banned entry when someday I want to take my son to visit China. Is it fair? Of course it's not fair. Is it against my rights as freedom of speech? Of course it's against my rights as freedom of speech, but it's not something that I can change. So I learned to live with it. I don't openly criticize the Chinese government on sensitive issues like Taiwan or Tibet or whatever on LinkedIn. I just don't. Could I talk about it and perhaps get a lot more views and a lot more followers? Sure. But I am aware of the potential ramifications down the road, so I choose not to. So the suggestion is that everybody has a choice. You don't have to go on TikTok and post your videos if you're concerned. Just go to Instagram Reels. Right?
When I lived in China, well, up until the point when we adopted my daughter, I did a lot of self-censoring about China because I depended on the Chinese government for my daughter's adoption to go through. And I was like, man, I could say the wrong thing and they could just shut down this adoption, and then we wouldn't get our daughter. And so I self-censored for years and was really careful because I'm pretty outspoken politically, but I had to work hard to keep my mouth shut about China while I was living there and up until the point when that adoption went through.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at all the NBA players.
Yeah.
No NBA player, except for Enes Kanter, who's now Enes Kanter Freedom or Freedom
Yeah.
Enes Kanter or whatever. No NBA player speaks out against any kind of censorship that's going on in China, because for them it's business.
Yeah.
All right. Now they speak up against injustice in the US, but they don't speak up against injustice that's happening in China.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean,
We each have to make our own decisions about
yeah,
what our priorities are.
Yeah, it's just pragmatism.
Yeah.
So anyway, so sorry to take so much of your time. Virginia, do you have any book writing related questions you wanted to ask Josh?
No, well, I've enjoyed this. It's been very, very interesting. And I have a communications background, as I've said to you, and I was always brought up not to put anything in writing that you don't want printed on the front page of the New York Times. And it has served me well. It has, but this topic that you were saying right now is becoming enhanced because of all the different groups that we have to be careful about. And it's really, just good manners, not to be slandering people and to treat people the way you want to be treated and a lot of that kind of stuff. But I would think somewhere along the line, one of those things I thought, gee, this would be another thing for you to dwell on because you have an expertise in that, so at any rate, no. As far as my own book questions this week, I really was just coming to listen and to be Josh's accountability partner. Josh, whether you know it or now, you now have an accountability partner.
Thank you.
And because it's good for both of us. It's a win-win. But no, I'm still going through your book and your workbook.
Great. Okay. There's going to be a fairly sizable revision real soon. So, well, actually it's in process, but it's, I'm making.
Are you doing that 100% yourself, or do you have editors for that?
No, I'm doing it because I'm making pretty big changes to it. And so only I can do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's not just like minor editing. It's like chopping parts of it out and stuff.
Well, that's another book related question I have. I struggle with figuring out how I can not only use editors, but how I can use kind of like copywriters, because a lot of my content actually requires at least a little bit of fluency in Chinese, because I'm mixing some Chinese concepts that are represented by Chinese phrases and Chinese characters directly into the content, which makes it exceedingly hard for any editor to really understand the context of that without having taken one of my courses, and even harder for copywriters to write it effectively. So that's also something that I struggle with.
That is a challenge. It sounds like you either need to find the right copywriter with the right skills or wait for ChatGPT 5 to come out, and it'll probably be smart enough.
What is ChatGPT 5?
Well, they just released ChatGPT 4, version 4 of it. And so I don't know when 5's coming out, maybe a year or two or something. But yeah, ChatGPT 4 is supposed to be like 100 times more powerful than what we had just 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I just signed up for Bard, Google's answer to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I don't think it's up yet. I just got an email. Do you want to be one of the early users? Sign up. So I'm on the wait list.
Well, I heard that Stanford was able to create a copy of ChatGPT for $600 or something. So the race is on, I think.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this all works. By the way, if you go and Google yourself on ChatGPT and just ask, who is Jean Sue or who is Virginia Kleinrock on ChatGPT, see what it gives you. Gives me some interesting answers. Apparently, I'm married to a Chinese billionaire, and I'm an outspoken proponent of Taiwan's rights.
Wow.
Of self-censorship.
Wow.
So,
Well, did you ever speak out on any of those issues before you went to adopt your daughter?
no, it just wasn't my thing. It wasn't my area of expertise or interest or anything else, really, until we went to Asia to live. And as soon as we were living there, we were working on the adoption. So I was quiet about that. So yeah, I thought it was really funny when ChatGPT told me that I was an outspoken critic of China's policy towards Taiwan. I was like, I might be a critic, but I'm not outspoken on that topic. So I have no idea where it got this from. But well, I also have no idea where it got the idea that I was married to a Chinese billionaire. But my wife was a little suspicious of that.
Any wife would be.
Yeah. Oh, cool. All right. Well, if there are no more questions, do we want to jump into our accountability session?
It's fine with me. I don't know about Jean. Do you have any more? You don't have any more questions?
No, I don't have any more questions, but I'm,
Your cat matches my dog.
but yeah, I just wanted to chat. I'm not going to do the accountability today.
We had just started the accountability working together section, but yeah, you can still ask questions during that part. So shoot.
Okay. So this is probably just no right answers here, but I'm interested on your take on how you handle this. We know that one thing, like you can only focus on so many things, right? And I feel like initially it was, oh, the book seems the most logical step. But as I've gotten started, it seems like a smaller, more micro investment is a short course, right? If you look at the map of things. And so it's just balancing. And I know we talked about the parking lot, but even attending these meetings now, it's like, I'm really not, just more of the mechanics. When you wrote like other books that you're working on, I don't know, the engineer in me just likes the lineal process, and this is very fluid, and it just ebbs and flows, but I guess that's just normal, right?
Yeah, I mean, as you come across new information, you change your ideas and your opinions, right? And so what's the right place to start on your ultimate journey, which the ultimate journey is not to write a book, right? The book is a means to an end. And how do you start that journey and how do you end that journey? Should you start it with a podcast or with a course or with a book? And there's a lot of ways to argue that, and there's no right answer. It's just what's best for your circumstances. And maybe there is no best. Maybe it's just pick one and do it. But there's certainly a lot of room to discuss which path is the best way to take and what order to do things in.
Yeah. Okay. Have you created courses before? Like,
yeah, my LinkedIn book was a course before it was a book.
okay. Would you recommend, I guess that's different because that's not really my hero book. Okay.
I mean, here, the pros and cons of all sorts of different stuff. The con with a book is that once you publish it, it's out there. And yeah, you can update it, you can release a new volume and stuff, but it's a little bit more of a pain. It's not so easy to edit. So for that reason, a lot of people like to blog instead of writing a book because they can go update the blog, take down posts, whatever, edit the posts that are there. You have complete freedom over that. Podcasts are nice because really with podcasts, you're not writing the book. You're just exploring topics. You're gathering information. You're throwing ideas out. You're interviewing interesting people. And so that's kind of like foundation building type stuff that you might be able to put into a book. A course is also nice because like a blog, you can update it. I mean, once it's out there, but you can update it pretty easily. And so a course is definitely more flexible and you can see where people get hung up and how people go through it and where they have problems, what parts they like the best. And that feedback can be really valuable for then writing your book. So I don't think there's a wrong decision about the direction to go. Of course, if you write a book, you have more credibility to get people into your course. And if the goal is, I want to make more money off of the course, well, having the book is going to help give you more credibility to go sell the course. On the other hand, having the course is going to help you build an audience so that you can sell more copies of your book, and it's going to help you write a better book. So which way is the right way? I don't know, but there are pros and cons each way.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That helps. It's just trade-offs, right? Trade-offs.
Yeah, it is just trade-offs. What I would say is don't let anything else become an excuse to not write the book just because you're afraid to write the book. If you find yourself having that feeling of, I'm really just avoiding writing the book because I don't want to write it, that doesn't necessarily mean you should write the book. Maybe it's still the right decision to do the course first or a podcast or whatever before the book, but just be aware of those feelings and don't let them control the whole situation.
Yeah, certainly.
As somebody who's an expert at avoiding things and self-sabotaging, that's my warning.
Well, thank you. Duly noted. Yeah, the other things definitely are easier for me right now. But I think part of that is I'm getting to that point of realizing, yes, that is my target audience. I don't have to know everything, but at the same time, I do need some more external cases to validate ideas and principles and share more stories. Really, that's what it is. I don't want it to be a memoir. So I need more stories from other people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So the podcast is great for that.
yeah.
And then the course too. I mean, the great thing about the course is, like I said, you can update it. And so you can be doing the podcast and building your course. And then as you get a story, you'll be like, oh, I can plug this into this place that I've already written in my course, but now I've got this story that I can plug in there that will make it so much better. And then you're really working on the book at the same time, because eventually your course will just turn into the book.
And that, you touched on it right as we were talking. I think that's been the biggest mindset shift these past couple of weeks, is it's a means to an end, that I am focusing on one thing. I'm focusing on creating a business for myself. And that's the end. Well, that's also a means to an end, but in this level, yeah, it's not that I'm delaying the book. It's just which sequence of these steps helps my circumstances get to that end. So yeah, thank you for crystallizing that, because you said what I was thinking much clearer than my muddled thoughts had connected those together. So
I'm glad if it helps.
yes, thank you.
Something I learned in a course with some people who publish lots of books is they write a lot of their information on index cards, and then they keep them in folders. And then when they're starting to put things together, they can take the stack of index cards and move them around a lot more.
Ryan Holiday, did you mention that's one of his methods?
Yeah, that's one of his methods.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know him. I got it from Brian Tracy.
Okay.
Ryan Holiday probably got it from Brian Tracy too.
Yeah. We definitely map out key presentations in our company and storyboard. I guess that's more storyboarding than, I don't know if it's the same principle, sounds similar, but
yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
similar. I mean, whatever works for you.
Notes, even using Post-it notes sometimes too. And I sometimes just take a folder and I open the folder and I use it as the board for the Post-it notes, because it's easier just to fold it up and put it away someplace as I'm working with ideas and thoughts and moving them around.
Yeah.
Some people like to write their book by creating a PowerPoint presentation and basically creating the slide deck with just really summary slides, but that helps them to organize their thoughts into a
Drag and
linear
drop
path. And it's really easy to move slides around and things like
Yeah.
that. And so that's another tool. It's kind of the same thing as the Post-it note method, really, except that you can see all the Post-it notes at once really easily.
Yeah.
But
And also too, if you just start out with your basic outline, then, you can move these different, it's, for a linear thinker, the basic outline will at least give you structure. And then the rest of these things can be moved in and out, and you can cut your outline up and add other things, the Post-it notes or whatever.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Virginia.
My pleasure. Trying to think of linear, any more linear thinker things. I think really, as Hemingway said, that from 9 to 11 every morning he was at his desk in case the thoughts came. And then after a certain amount of time, you sort of your body and your mind get used to having the thoughts come at that certain amount of time, And just so what I was starting out with that one is the most important thing for any kind of thinker is just to get it out any way you can. And it's another thing Brian Tracy calls it the dump, that you write all your ideas on a piece of paper, just get it on paper, then decide what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's it's just the execution, right? That's my problem, at least.
Well, once you decide which path you're going to take, then execution becomes a lot easier. Indecision makes execution tough.
Yeah. Well, you can see I got the boom.
Yeah.
I recorded my first episode last week. So
Mike sounds great.
Good. It's thank you. Your list was perfect. It just went right through. So yeah, anyway.
All right.
It's coming together. Okay. Well, thank you. I will not be joining the working session today, but I love the idea.
All right.
And I hope to join